Get ready because we're coming for the crown on this episode of Down with the King. I am Jamie G. Esquire, the fifth master of phrasing. Yep, we're doing it again. It's official. I'm back with Magnum to give you our Draftkings Showdown picks for the Week 9 matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills.
Wait, is my turn already? He usually takes longer than that. I'm going to be the bigger man and pass on making a run at the Master of Phrasing crown because that's not the crown we are interested in here on Down with the King, presented by CZGAF Fantasy Football. Thank you for checking out our show. You can find us wherever you get your pods and on YouTube, on social media at CZGAFFF. Same place on the web, czgaff.ff.com. Very easy to remember, just like the flaps, FLAPS. Follow, like, and please subscribe. If you had fun, please remember to hit that thumb.
Before we get started, I do need to remind you guys, always check the news, the weather, and any injury reports before finalizing your lineups. It's critical. You got to do it. And for the record, we are not affiliated with DraftKings in any way, shape, or form, but we could be if they just return our calls. And come on, DK, holler at your boy. Jesus, man. Enough beating around the bush here. Let's do this thing. I mean, if I don't get to talk about Josh Allen soon, I literally might explode. Ring the bell, Mills. It's time for the tale of the tape.
This is week 9 of the 2024 NFL season. We have the 2-5 Miami Dolphins traveling to Orchard Park, New York to face the 6-2 Buffalo Bills. Sunday, November 3rd, 2024. Kickoff is at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Watch it on CBS. According to the DraftKings Sportsbook, right now the Miami Dolphins are 6-point road dogs, plus 215 on the money line, while the Buffalo Bills are 6-point home favorites, minus 265 on the money line. The game total is 49 points. Looking at a nice day for football in the fall as we turn to the weather report. We will have temperatures in the low to mid 50s, minimal chance of precipitation, and fairly light winds for the area, 5 to 10 miles an hour. So not too bad. Shapes up to be a great day for football, even though it's not Friday night. As far as the injury report on the Miami side of the ball, we have numerous players listed as questionable. The main concerns are defensive tackle Zach Seiler. He's questionable with an orbital bone injury. Tyreek Hill, the wide receiver, questionable with a foot, but I very much expect him to play. Then we have two corners as questionable, Kader Kohu and Storm Duck. Hell of a name, Storm Duck. Love that one. And finally, safety Javon Holland, also questionable. On the Bills side of the ball, not as many concerns, but a couple of notable ones here. Linebacker Terrell Bernard has been getting in limited practices. He's got an ankle injury, trending towards playing, but not guaranteed. Same thing with Curtis Samuel, the wide receiver, has a pectoral injury. Sounds like he might have a chance to suit up this week. Amari Cooper, the other wide receiver there, has a wrist injury, but I expect him to play this week. And then finally, the Bills might be getting Von Miller, the defensive end, back from a 4-game suspension as he is eligible to return. I think that sounds pretty positive for both teams. Definitely for the Bills, a little bit later on the injury report than it's been so far this season. So that's got to make you feel good, Jamie G. How do you feel about this matchup, man? The Bills going to put a lot of points on the board. Where are they coming from? What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Division rivalry here, and the Bills have gotten the better of Miami. They're going to be fired up. We're going to get their best, but I think the Bills are in a good spot here, man. But the thing from a fantasy standpoint here is the Bills remain somewhat difficult to pinpoint in terms of who's going to have the big game because we've seen so many different players have the big game. We all know Allen is a no-brainer, but outside of that, is it Cook? I think you got to play Cook, but then is it Shakir? Is it Kincaid? Is it Coleman? I think you need to guess right. And if you play 2, 3, 4 of these guys, you want all of them to hit. And I think there's a legitimate chance they do. It's just a matter of trying to get it right. And there's just almost too many options here. So I think that's the challenge. Last week to his return, I thought he looked good. I thought Chain looked good as well. It's hard for me to pick a Miami receiver right now until we really start to see that offense go. I noticed an uptick with usage with Jonnu Smith. So for me, I think it's either or, with Smith or maybe a wide receiver 3 for Miami. I think there's some questions there about what you're thinking you're going to do, but those are my general thoughts.
Yeah, good point with Smith. And I think it's a case where they've started to feature the tight end a little bit more, where it was the wide receiver three. We've seen like Cedric Wilson Jr. previous seasons, River Crackraft, and that's where they brought Odell Beckham Jr. in. So I think either he has a game or Smith does. So probably I wouldn't play that combination of Smith and Beckham in many of your lineups, if any at all. I agree with pretty much everything you said there. I think Cook and Allen are very stable on the Bills side, Achane on the Dolphins side. But if you put those three guys in your lineup up top, especially with Allen and captain, you're not going to have a ton of money left over. I don't have any problem with doing that, but you're right. You're going to really have to pick and choose very carefully, very wisely between the other options, especially I think between the Bills wide receivers, because there are numerous options and they all look pretty good for various reasons. And most of them are priced pretty competitively.
And it's exciting because you got your pick of the litter, but it's also like, well, shit, which one's going to have it? So if it was Easy Mills, everyone would be doing it. We're going to start at the top with our picks for the captain spot. Here's every option above 11,000. Josh Allen up top at 16,200. Tyreek Hill is next at 14,700. Then comes James Cook, 14,400, followed by Devon Achane. He's 14,100. So virtually, just $300 cheaper than Cook there. Tua Tagovailoa is 13,800, and then Khalil Shakira is 11,100. Of these options, who are you prioritizing at captain outside of Josh Allen? I mean, I think that's probably an obvious one, but where are you going with it from there?
Yeah, definitely Josh Allen, pretty much lock putt in your cash games, single entry tournaments, and he certainly has enough upside that you can use him even in the biggest of GPPs. Just make sure you have other options, or if you're going to play Josh Allen up top in a large tournament, you're going to want to differentiate yourself further down your lineup. So just keep that in mind. But especially if you're playing, a head to head, small contest with your friends, single entry, 50-50 double up, go ahead, just plug Josh Allen in. And then I think it's really just the case of both running backs. Which one would you rather go with? If you play Cook at captain at 14-4, then it's like, oh, can you still play Josh Allen at flex? That's a discussion we can have. But I think Cook has a nice combination of floor and ceiling. We've seen him have a couple of ceiling games. If he has another one of those at the captain spot, that's a monster. And you can pretty much say the same thing with Achane. I will add that I was very impressed at the role that he had and how efficient he was last week with the return of Tua, but also having Raheem Mostert healthy, with having Jalen Wright active now. You could have had more guys eating away at his touches. Still saw over 20 total touches, super efficient with him. He's active in the passing game. He's active in the red zone. Lot to like there. For the sake of your Buffalo Bills, I hope he's not scoring a ton of touchdowns, but I definitely think Josh Allen and the two running backs, my top options at captain. And again, Cook and Achane probably better suited for bigger tournaments. I'd say 3 max, 20 max, your big 150s or whatever. I don't know if I'd play either of them in my cash games at captain, because I think that's reserved for Josh Allen. I'm going to assume you're pretty much the same thing there. How about yourself? Other than Josh Allen, kind of, obviously again in your smaller joints and mixing them in tournaments, who else are you going with as your captain?
Yeah, I think, and obviously we saw James Cook have like the incredible day when this team played in week two. He's certainly an option here at 14,400. But you mentioned Devon Achane. I think, I was really impressed with not only in the running game, but how they used him in the passing game and got him alone in space. And I think if you can do that, the Bills have struggled. One of the kind of kryptonites that they've had so far this season is they've struggled with running backs coming out of the backfield, catching the football. And so you think if that works in Achane's favor, he could be in line for a big day. An interesting play here, Mills, is playing Tua and just having that be maybe your only player, and just hope that he gets all the points, save some money there, or maybe Tua and Achane, and that's it. And then build out, pretty much a bunch of Bills, four different Bills players where I think you can afford them if, by saving, you put two of there, you're saving $3,000 from Josh. So it's risky, but I think it's an interesting strategy.
Yeah, it certainly could work, especially if you get in a scenario. The one you wouldn't love was if the Dolphins just come out blazing early and get up. I think the more likely scenario would be the Bills get up big, the Dolphins go one dimensional, and Tua airs it out 50 times, and Achane catches a bunch of passes. So you can pretty much get away with those two being your primary plays, as long as you don't see the wide receivers catching a bunch of touchdowns or something like that. So I definitely think there was some viability to that. I think we have a pretty clear consensus here. Obviously, Josh Allen up top, and then the two running backs, James Cook at 14-4, Achane at 14-1. How about a creeper captain? We did those guys above 11K. Let's call a creeper captain anybody under 11K. And We have more options than most this week. A couple of Bills especially stand out here. I'm going to go with your guy, Dalton Kincaid, as my creeper captain. He's 10-5 if you want him at the captain spot. And I have more interest in him at captain than I do in the flex, partially because of the other options around him, but mostly because I think eventually Kincaid is going to have an absolute monster game. And I think it will come a little bit at the expense of some of the wide receivers because, again, everybody eats. If Kincaid can have 2 touchdowns and 100 yards, there might not be enough left around for everybody else unless the Bills want to drop a 50 burger or something like that. I just think he has a high upside as a captain option. You save a bunch of money enough so that maybe you can feel comfortable with also playing Josh Allen in the flex with maybe Kincaid and Achane. Pricing gets tight up there. Don't mind with going with the Kincaid. Jamie G, I'm assuming you can find somebody else you like here, but I'm sure you also like Kincaid as a creeper.
I do love Kincaid there, but Mills, I'm going with the young bull here. I'm going with Keon Coleman. The last 2 weeks of the season, Coleman has put together two of his best performances as a pro. He's been noticeably better each and every week as the season wore on, and he's becoming kind of a go-to. And one thing that really impresses me here is Josh's trust in Keon Coleman. He's using them in the red zone. He's using them down the field in the 50-50 ball. He's using them on the slot. He's looking for them and he's getting him the football in critical spots, third down, fourth down, conversion plays. So I think that's going to continue, man. I really do. And at $8,400, if he puts together another, 80-yard performance, gets in the end zone once or twice, I think you're going to be happy you put him there because again, how much money you're going to save.
Yeah, if you get 100 and a touchdown out of him, I think that's enough to pay it off because of what it opens up for the rest of your lineup. So I think that is probably technically a better play than Kincaid, just given how much money you're saving, 2,100 bucks here. That is not insignificant at all. So I do really love that play. And I guess if you wanted to, you could play a kicker defense at captain. I don't think this is the week for it, but if you wanted to, Tyler Bass, Bills kicker, would be 7,800. Jason Sanders, the Dolphins kicker, 7,200. Bills DST, 6,600. And the Dolphins DST, 5,400. I know some weeks it's viable. This doesn't feel like one of those weeks to me. Any interest in playing a defense or kicker at special at captain this week?
Not really. The Bills at 6,600, it would take major cojones. I'm likely not going to be able to get myself there. If I'm playing like a huge contest with thousands of entries or something, I may consider throwing one lineup like that out there just to be different. But I don't think I'm gonna get there.
Yeah, because even if you wanted to run the correlation with the running back, then you'd still probably want James Cook at captain, basically, unless they were going to do a thing where all three running backs got in the end zone. I wouldn't put that past the Bills, but that's a little bit too hard to predict. And if you want to throw a DSD or kicker in your flex, T Bass would be 5,200, Jason Sanders 4,800, Bills DST 4,400, and the Dolphins DST 3,600. I don't think there's any way I'm rolling Tyler Bass right now. I'm just not comfortable with him, and I don't think they're going to let him try field goals 50 yards or longer. And that's where you start getting some of the bigger points for field goal kickers. Don't mind Sanders, but he's one of those dudes who either does nothing or has 5 field goals, kind of. So probably a decent large field GPP option, but not something I'd really want to roll. Same thing for the Dolphins D. And I think the Bills DST, again, last guy in your lineup kind of deal. Probably cool with it, but not somebody I'm really prioritizing. How about yourself? Any interest in the DST kicker options at the flex?
I think I'm still kind of standing pat on Bass. I think he's got to prove it before I even consider it. And honestly, the Bills have been pretty damn good in the red zone to where I'm more interested in playing, guessing right on the skill level positions because they've been finding the end zone rather than settling for field goals. Sanders is interesting, but like you said, I just don't know that it makes a lot of sense this week. Bills special teams, if you think it's going to be the type of game that we saw when they went down to Miami earlier this year. I think you would have been really happy playing the Bills special teams. I think they had 3 or 4 interceptions that game, a touchdown. So if you think it's going to be one of those, you could probably talk yourself into it. But I think I'm going to pass on it this week.
Yeah, again, bigger tournament, last guy in your lineup kind of deal, but just not a priority at all this week.
One of the keys to having success in showdown contests is finding enough savings to make the lineup work. You got to ball on a budget. Mills, who are you saving a few bucks with this week?
Probably go back to the well with your guy, Dawson Knox, the Bills tight end at 2K flat. pretty much touchdown or bust, but the last couple of weeks he's had a couple catches, so not impossible you could get 8 points without the touchdown. Not great, but in 2K, that won't kill you for what it opens up. Same kind of thing with Alec Ingold, the Dolphins running back, technically their fullback, really. He's only $400. Gets a couple of checkdowns occasionally, random touchdown here or there. 400 bucks doesn't need to do much. And to be perfectly honest, if you hit the rest of the stuff, for what it allows, getting the zero at one lineup spot really isn't the end of the world, especially in a smaller tournament or even a cash game sometimes. And then a guy I think we both like a little bit, talked about him in the overall thoughts, Jonnu Smith, 4K for the Dolphins tight end. I think it's either or with him or Beckham, but he's been decent enough. I always liked him as a player. We've seen him have splash games before. Doesn't have to do a ton to pay off 4K. If he finds the end zone, I'd say, 15, 20 points, not out of the question. So I do not mind that at all. We're staying under 5K here, so your guy really isn't an option yet. We'll get to him in a minute. I figure you probably like Dawson Knox again. Who else do you like under 5K?
Yeah, definitely like Knox. And like you said, Jonnu Smith at 4,000. I really like that. I've watched Miami the last couple of weeks, and he's been a focal point for them. And they've used him more than I've seen in the past. So, that could be something where you like that. You mentioned him or Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham's only 1,600. So you're literally getting $3,400 of savings there. And I think you're kind of hoping for the same thing. So it's kind of a coin flip there. I think I'd probably lean Odell Beckham just from a pure cost standpoint. And then another guy we talked about this. I don't know that it's a week to do it because I think you're going to want to get in some of the Bills pass catchers. But Ray Davis at 3,200, he is going to get playing time. And the other thing to consider here is GDP, man, garbage time production. If the Bills get up early, it wouldn't surprise me at all for Ray Davis to get a lot of work because they're just going to be resting some of the starters. It's happened multiple times this year. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but if they get up, say 20 points or so, it wouldn't surprise me for them to really go Ray Davis and just let him have a day.
I want to agree like that. I just remember the end of the Seahawks game, sweating my Ray Davis over 5.5 carries prop, and it got there. But it took a minute. They were liberal with the James Cook usage there in the early fourth quarter, but still a big fan. I like the price tag there. And God forbid James Cook didn't get to play his usual complement of snaps. I think Davis would be in an absolute smash spot there. So a little bit of consensus on the tight ends. I think Dawson Knox, 2K, Jonnu Smith, 4K.
Let's finish up with the flex with our favorite plays priced above 5K. And what up, Mills? You paying all the way up here? Or are you going with my guy?
Probably your guy up top just because he was cheap at captain, you obviously have to know he's going to be cheap in your flex. Keon Coleman at 5,400 is pretty great here. Definitely underpriced, I'd say, by at least $8,000. Nice combination of big play potential and red zone look. So very excited about that. And then the two running backs. If you're not playing them at the captain, you're probably playing Josh. I might be trying to get both these guys in my lineup, no matter how cost prohibitive it might be. Devin Achane, 9,400 in your flex. Definitely my favorite option on the Dolphins. And you mentioned the Bills defense has struggled against the running backs in the receiving game, but they've been pretty good the last 2 weeks against Tony Pollard and Kenneth Walker III. Let's see if they can keep it up here. And if I'm not going with either of the running backs, how about Khalil Shakir, your guy there, 7,400 in your flex. Excellent floor, at least double-digit DK points in every game that he has played his usual complement of snaps. He's got a little bit of nose for the end zone. Very nice value option if you're stacking him with Josh Allen at captain as well. Probably the highest floor out of the Bills wide receivers. My guess is my favorite combo will be Coleman and Shakir, but we'll see how it breaks down. We'll talk about that in a minute. Jamie G, I know you love the Keon Coleman. How about Josh Allen? I didn't mention him at the flex. I think it's a weird thing where I'm just expecting him to, have a good game. And if he does that, he's going to score a lot of points. You're going to want him in your captain, especially with that passing and rushing upside. How are you approaching him if you're not playing Josh Allen at captain? How often are you using him in your flex? Are you still always playing him in the flex if you're not using him at captain? Or if you're using, say, James Cook at captain, you're kind of gambling on it'll be more of the rushing attack, or at least the rushing attack's going to score the touchdowns. So maybe you're not playing Josh Allen at all. Any thoughts about Josh Allen at captain? And then who else do you like here in the flex besides Coleman?
Yeah, I if I'm not playing him in the captain spot, I think I gotta get him in there. I just don't want to. I think he's almost an automatic play, whether he's in captain or flex. I understand the game storyline and how it could play out and stuff, but I I think I gotta have him in there, and either him or Cook are likely to be my guys at captain. The opposite will be in my flex spot. One guy, for Miami here, I really like. Chain. I just think I got to get him in there. I expect a lot of the offense to flow through him. And it's a position the Bills have struggled with kind of throughout the season. We talked Keon Coleman. If I was to go one guy on, I love Shakir too. Just again, if it's a pricing thing, you got to make sure you can fit them all. But if I had one guy that I would go to on the wide receiver position, Jalen Waddle, I think is somewhat interesting at 6,600. He's a lot less expensive than Hill, and he could be a guy that he's hurt the Bills in the past. So I think that's an interesting play there as well.
Yeah, you never want to say, oh, he is due, but Waddle really hasn't had a big game yet this year. And if Hill can actually get out there and draw some double teams and stuff like that, that might open things up for him a little bit. Excellent tournament play there. And I think that's pretty much the case if you're not going to play Josh Allen. If you're not going to play Josh Allen at all at your captain or in the flex, that's definitely more of a large field GPP, large field, big tournament lineup idea where you're just hoping that all the touchdowns get there somewhere else. As far as our consensus plays, I think pretty clear on Keon Coleman at 5,200, and then both the running backs, Achane at 94 and James Cook at 96.
We're going to finish this up by discussing our favorite stacks and any other strategies for this matchup. Mills, what is your favorite Josh Allen stack?
I think pretty obviously the one I mentioned before, Josh Allen, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, run it back on the other side with Devin Achane, and then you have to make the decision about whether or not you add James Cook to that. If you do, you're really going to have to dumpster dive at the other spot, or you could go a little bit more balanced. How about yourself? Would you go Allen, Coleman, Shakir, and are you definitely pairing Allen with James Cook in the majority of your lineups?
Yeah, I think so. Alan Coleman Shakir is definitely my favorite with Achane, but I think if you wanted to swap out Shakir with Kincaid, I think you could that's an interesting one as well. Again, with Cook and then maybe like the OBJ play for Miami just to go a 4-2. I think 4-2 is probably my option for Bills to Miami. Seems where I'm landing most of the time here.
Would it change any of the calculus if you were going to say play one of the Bills value options like a Dawson Knox or even a Mac Hollins? Is that just so you can get Cook in there, or is that so maybe you could try to get Shakir and Cooper, or Kincaid and Cooper or something like that, or pay up a little bit more?
Yeah, I think you should play around with the numbers here a little bit because if Mac Hollins every couple of games is going to find himself in the end zone. He just is. And we've seen it. Every couple of games he gets a touchdown. He's pretty much touchdown or bust too. But I do think there's some ability there to where you could do worse than taking a flyer on him, especially when he's $1,200 or whatever it is. So if that allows you to get, you know, the big three and then a fourth bill or something, or big three, then I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I think definitely something to consider for your bigger tournaments. And if you were going to stack Tua up, be it at captain or in the flex, do you think you can do the usual double barrel? We saw it take down big GPPs on the main slate last year, where you would play Tua with Hill and Waddle. And in this case, you have the option of running it back with Josh Allen on the other side. Again, absolutely immensely expensive at that point, but it is technically doable. Any interest in the Tua super stack there? Or if you're stacking Tua, are you doing it more subtly, dropping down into that Jonnu Smith range and then working Achane in there or something like that?
Yeah, probably doing it a smidge more subtly. I still think there's a little bit of rust there. And even before the injury, we hadn't seen the explosions of that offense that we saw last year that would justify something like that. So I think I got to play it a little bit more subtly.
Yeah, so if you had to guess, if you were playing two Dolphins, they probably Tua and Achane, assuming you could afford them.
Yeah. Because that way you're kind of considering, all right, well, I'm hoping that I'm involved in all touchdowns then.
Yeah,
And
barring the
and almost
random
all
Mostert
yards.
rushing touchdown or something like that. Yeah, I think
Right.
that's a pretty safe play. If you were just going to play one Dolphins wide receiver, would you go for the gusto with Hill, or would you try to just go with the value of Waddle?
I think I'd probably go with the value of Waddle and allow myself some flexibility to stack in more people on the Bill side.
So if you're doing a 5-1, is Achan the one guy on the Dolphin side probably, or in that case, would you consider Tua or even Hill a little bit more?
I think I probably would just stick with it because I don't know that I can really get myself there with more than that.
Yeah, again, we are doing phrasing again, but I think Hill is definitely an excellent tournament play. We're sharing the feelings of a lot of people. He's only had one good game so far this season, and it was the first game of the season against the Jaguars. His ownership is definitely depressed here. I think he's an interesting large field GPP option, but I'm going to be very cautious with him in smaller stuff. And if you had to play a backup running back, would you rather go with Ray Davis or Raheem Mostert?
That's really tough. I think probably Davis because he's priced a little bit less. I know Mostert kind of got some work last week, but I think I'd probably go Davis and save the money.
Yeah, this is the thing. I don't know if I would double barrel either team's running backs, but every once in a while, especially if I'm running, 25, 50 or more lineups, I will throw something where just the backup running back in there occasionally, just hoping for the early concussion or something like that. And you just get a huge share of carries. The running back and quarterback positions are the easiest to kind of get the bump from the injury because at the wide receiver position, it's not always who you think it's going to be. Whereas you usually have a pretty good idea the next man up at quarterback and running back. So just something to think about there. I would say overall, I'm most frequently landing on a 4-2 build with 4 Buffalo Bills, 2 Miami Dolphins in most formats, and not even exclusively to my cash or single entry. Also getting there quite a bit in my big tournament lineups. How about you, man? Are you generally 4-2 Bills Dolphins, or are you getting to a little bit different build?
I think I'm pretty much 4-2. I spent some time going through a bunch of different variations, and I keep coming out at 4-2. I think that's where I feel most comfortable. Maybe a 5-1, but I think I'm probably going to stay at 4-2.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much where I'll stick this week. I will run some 5-1s almost exclusively, probably with 5 Bills and one on the Dolphin side again. Probably Chan for the most part, but I also will mix Tua and Hill into those builds if I'm going there. And maybe a 3-3 kinds of ends up working out here. We'll have to see if any more value opens up as we get closer to kickoff. But I would think that would probably be mostly a cash game type of build, anyways.
That is about it. Anything else before we get out of here?
I know Jamie G would like to say squish the fish, but we are a nonpartisan or whatever you are in the fan stuff. But I hope it's a good game. I'd like to see some points here. I know you don't really want to see a close one, but these are two pretty good offenses. I wouldn't mind a couple points. I want you to not have a heart attack in the fourth quarter or anything like that. But I think this could be an interesting game to watch. And even if you're not a fan of either team, if you're checking this out somehow, make sure you throw a couple bucks in on the Showdown contest. Give yourself a little skin in the game.
Always put the skin in the game. And we always thank you guys for checking out Down with the King. We are presented by Seize the Gap Fantasy Football. Make sure you throw the thumb. Make sure you subscribe. We do this each and every week for all sorts of different games. We have all your sports wagering, all your fantasy, all your dynasty needs covered. Best thing you can do, drop the comment, get in our DMs, share the wins, man. I want all of us to make some money together. Good luck this weekend. Mills will let you know where you can find all of our stuff.
Like the wise man corrupt said, it ain't no fun if my homies can't have none. We want to share the wealth, share the success, and thank you for sharing this episode of Down with the King, presented by Seize the Gap Fantasy Football, with all of your friends and family and pretty much everyone else you can share it with. We super appreciate it. Find us wherever you get your pods and on YouTube, on social media at Seize the Gap FF, same place on the web. Please don't forget those flaps, FLAPS, very crucial to our success. Follow, like, and please subscribe. If you had fun, please remember the thumb. I'm Magnum Mills, he's Jamie G, and we are
Down with the King.